What's up, everyone, and welcome into the Buffalo Sports Collective. It is Wednesday, June 26, 2024. As always, I am PK alongside my co-host Phil for episode 292. For those that watch on YouTube, hopefully, fingers crossed, the intro worked this time. I think I hit the button too quickly last time starting it, and that's why you saw my head bobbing but no music behind me. But if you're audio only, you heard the intro. Phil, how is the last Wednesday show of June? We're a month down of our off-season schedule. We got 5 months more of this. It's going by a lot quicker than the regular season did.
It is refreshing, though. I will absolutely say it. There was a few times my fiance Ashley asked me, she's like, "Hey, don't you have a podcast today?" I was like, "No, we don't record till later." And then we've even been recording in different days. This is like the latest we've recorded in a week. Because of all of our testing and things that we've been doing. So we've been recording a little earlier just to make sure everything works. So this is probably one of the bigger breaks we've had. And she asked me a few times last week, like, "Oh, don't you have a podcast to record?" I was like, no, we don't. And honestly, every time it felt nice. It was like, all right, we got an actual, it's slowly starting to feel like a little bit of a break from the extreme grind of in-season insanity. So it's been nice. It's been nice kind of just taking a step back, and we're still doing our research, still paying attention to everything, still doing all the work, but only having one episode a week it's nice for now.
Yeah, I think that was one of the big sticking points on the 3-year anniversary show that we did with producer Pat was, what was one of the bigger things that kind of set you in the right track was going to one show in the off season, because we were just draining ourselves nonstop. And I think you hit the nail on the head. Same with my wife Brooke going, don't you got recording this week? No, we're down to one show a week. And like you said, even like bouncing around, we did like a Sunday, then we did a Monday. I think we're back to a Sunday. This one's a Tuesday, all time recording. So yeah, we went from a Sunday to a Tuesday. So it's been 9 days, about 9 days.
It's been nice.
9 days without recording. It's been we're still doing stuff behind the scenes, but in the off season, it's a lot less stuff.
We need it.
We definitely needed it after a very extended in regular season. Thank you, Buffalo Bandits, for doing that to us once again. And you're probably going to do it to us again next year. But if you want to follow us, you can do it and do so on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, and TikTok at Buffalo Sports Collective, and on X and Blue Sky, Buffalo Sports Co. Don't forget to follow our channel wherever you listen to podcasts. Check out our website at buffalosportscollective.com. If you haven't heard, we have a store, we have a merch, and you can go support the BSC on the go. And if you want to check out any of that stuff, you can check out our store on the link tree on all our social media sites, or at the top of the website by just hitting the shop tab. Takes you right to it. We got shirts, we got mugs, we got stickers, we got magnets, we got everything that you would possibly want in that store. So go check it out. Like, again, you can represent the BSC on the go and look for the time breakdowns in the description of the show. We will start first, and I'm going to have to update this graphic here because we'll talk about him in a second. He is no longer a Buffalo Bandit. I'm going to have producer Pat fix this. But the 4th installment of the Mad Matty Minute. I still have to do this. My wishes have not come true. I think he's just going to wait until like October to sign just to see how many of these he can rack up. And I would do the same thing. So
yeah, it's smart.
Yeah, for those of you who have not listened to this segment, it's real simple. Every Wednesday until we get word on Mad Vince and his plans, I'm just going to be tossing out offers to try to entice him to come back to try for that three-peat. So all these are legally binding. So far, I'm cleaning up after his animals, no matter what kind they are. I'm returning all his packages that he needs returned, and I'm getting his food for him so he doesn't have to have the delivery service and doesn't have to leave his house if he wants. This 4th one, I think, comes in handy for athletes. I am going to be the water boy. And if you've seen the movie, it's sort of like that. We have the same IQ level. But you're thirsty for any sort of drink, you don't have it in your house, I'll go get it. Tired after training and you forgot your drink, I'll just randomly show up. Like you're wondering, oh man, I'm really thirsty. My hand will appear with a nice cold glass of whatever you want. Dry mouth at work, because he is a teacher. You just need that sip of water. A hand will appear from underneath the desk with a nice cold glass of water. So, Mad Vince, I will be your water boy. I will add that to the collection of other offers that I've presented to you in this Mad Matty Minute.
I think you need to get really good, like some of the ones in the NFL that can like hit it from distance with the bottle. And I need you like from your seats, and yeah, from your seats in the arena. I need you like when he looks over after a big save and he's like, "Hey, I need a little bit of water." I need you to be able to make sure you can hit him from distance.
Get that angle right. So, Matt Vince, once again, all of these are legally binding. You have your agent contact my agent. I am my own agent, so just have him contact me through our social media sites, which I already mentioned, or our email. If you want to email Buffalo Sports Collective at gmail.com, send those your way. I'll sign whatever contract you need if it means you're playing for the Buffalo Bandits. So, Phil, it's that time. But before we get into more report cards, we do have one quick thing to mention, and I kind of already hinted at it. Devlin Shanahan has been released from the holdout list, which means he is in the player pool. He is no longer a part of the Buffalo Bandits. We knew that once Matt Vince came back, there was going to be that roster crunch once again of 3 healthy goaltenders on the roster. And the rest of the team was getting healthier. You had Zach Belter come back. You had Justin Martin come back. Adam Bomberry came back. You made the trade for Paul Dawson. You signed Connor Farrell. So the roster was already quite jammed up. And we were wondering how long can this team go with having 3 healthy goalies on the team throughout the entire season. They made it much further than I thought they would. But it seemed like midway through the season, Steve Orleman won that backup job. And I think he performed very well. It's not that I thought Devlin Shanahan played poorly. I think he was let down. I think it was that Vancouver game, right? Early on, I think he was let down by the defense. And, there were times where he looked a bit shaky. But I do believe that he was put on the holdout list because pretty much just to make room. Because why would you show up for practice when you know you're going to be a healthy scratch? You got other things that you could be going on in your real life that might take priority over, hey, I know I'm going to be a healthy scratch. I'll be on this holdout list. If you need me, I'll come back. So what were your thoughts on Buffalo releasing him back into the wild? Former 4th-round pick, I believe in 2019. They put a lot of time and energy into developing him, and now he is on his way out to maybe greener pastures. Maybe he gets another shot somewhere else to be a backup or possibly compete for a starting job.
Yeah, I think the part you said right there is the more interesting part, I guess, in a way, is that they did put a lot of time into his development. He's been here for a long time. He's been the bench backup on this team for a little while. I mean, he's obviously very close with all the teammates and everything. Being on the bench every single game for a long time there until the end of the season is a big deal. Obviously very close with everyone in the locker room, and then he got put on the holdout. And I think it was just a matter of kind of ranking their 4 goaltenders. Like heading into last season, we were like, 4 is ridiculous. On a team like this, where space is of the essence on this roster in any way, shape, or form that you can try to find it, get it, whatever. 4 is a lot of goalies for a team like the Bandits to have. Like their talent all the way through the roster, the, active roster, sit-outs per game, the healthy scratches, the practice squad, everything is just a fight to be any aspect of this team, and to have 4 goalies in some way, shape, or form on the team was a lot. And I think they just, I don't know, I mean, whatever they saw last year, I mean, like you said, I think Shanahan struggled a little bit. I don't think he was given a fair shot in the games he was in. But the game we saw Orleman in, I do think Orleman outperformed Shanahan from just a view standpoint. Just watching the game, Orleman just looked potentially like the better goalie, and clearly the Bandits agreed as they made him their backup. And with what you sent today, which is what I was pulling up on my phone, Adam Levy kind of mentioning that Evan Konstantopoulos, if that's how we're saying his name,
Evan C.
Had a really good winter and is now having a pretty solid summer. We know he's extremely young. I'm not saying he's by any means the next man up. I think it'd still be Orleman no matter what happens. But just to see that their extremely young goalie is progressing and is getting better, I think is just another aspect of this, is that, okay, now you have another goalie who's even younger, who they also clearly believe in. They drafted him, kept him on the roster so they would not have to get rid of him, and kept him there the whole season when, again, you had this roster crunch and all these players that you could have added or, had in a different way on this team So for them to even stick with him as long as they did for the entire season, that they did not want to let him go, and then he had a big winter developing with the team, being part of the team. Now you're seeing the benefits over summer. I think that aspect of it is another big part of it, where heading into this offseason, if Evan didn't exist, I think it'd be different for Shanahan, because we don't know what's going on with Vince, right? He's signed technically, so he doesn't need a deal, but he still kind of has to say if he's coming back or not. That's still up to him. So they don't have to go through the contract issue of it, which is honestly even... It's good for the team. It's bad for us because he doesn't have to sign a contract. Like you mentioned, we might not have a clue when he's going to finally admit that he's coming back, hopefully sooner than later, so we can let the team know. I'm sure he wouldn't do the team dirty like that and just not tell them until the last second. But I do think the fact that if Vince does move on, they're okay with Orleman and Evan being the 1-2 and kind of moving on from Shanahan. I think a lot of it has to do with Evan seemingly stepping through his progression and developing as that goalie, because I don't think you get rid of Shanahan unless you know Vince is coming back. And if you don't know he's coming back, I don't know. It seems like you're putting a lot on Evan C. if they didn't believe in him as a potential future goalie or potential backup. So I do think a lot has to do with the development of him, and I think some of it's going to do with Vince, but I do think it has a lot to do with the development of your younger goalie and just the belief in Orleman. Obviously, I think they truly believe that Orleman was better than Shanahan, and I think they now believe that Evan could be the potential future of the team way down the line, but they want him possibly in that backup spot if it comes to it.
So before I even mention it, I think it's important to say there's nothing stopping Buffalo and Shanahan from later on in this summer to re-agree and bring him back if something happens. If Orleman gets hurt in the summer, I'm assuming that Shanahan would be the first phone call. For me, it's kind of what you last said. I don't think they make this move unless they got some sort of assurance or some kind of word from a Matt Vince that he's interested. He's leaning more than not that he would be returning, because otherwise I think you go into next season with Orleman and Shanahan battling it out for the one spot. And I think a lot of that season, I don't want to put too much into the world here, but I think a lot of that season would be going with the hot hand between those two goalies. I don't think Evan C is anywhere near ready yet. I think he still needs a lot more development, and I think he has promise, and everything that we're reading in the summer ball, he has taken a massive step forward this year. And I think under the tutelage of Shanahan, Orleman, and especially Mad Vince, but then you also got Steve Dietrich. You also got Anthony Cosmo there. You got the GOAT and Johnny Tavares. So all that knowledge passed down to him is definitely helping it, and you see that in the summer ball. But I just don't think he would be ready to be the number two at a young age of, 20 years old? I mean, he can't even drink yet. My thought is just, unless you got some type of assurance or Mad Vince said something, I don't think you make this move. So this, to me, as much as I'm going to miss Shanahan, and even going into this season, we were all like, hey, you and I both were like, I don't know what the whole ordeal of Orleman being the new backup and being the replacement for Mad Vince down the line when you have Shanahan here. Now, eventually throughout the season, Orleman did win that battle. So, I mean, we were right to start, but so on and so forth. But I just don't think you release Shanahan unless you got some sort of hint, hint, nudge, nudge, wink, wink. Mad Vince is likely coming back. So I will take this as good news that maybe the Mad Matty Minute is going away soon and I won't have to keep making so many offers. But I'll take this as good news because I don't think you release Shanahan to go see what else he can get out there unless you got some sort of talk from Mad Vince. That's my biggest thoughts, and I'll take it as a positive that means Mad Vince will be back with the Buffalo Bandits next season.
Which is all we've ever wanted.
Very much so. So let's move on to the league report cards. We've already covered the first 6. We went Colorado, Las Vegas, and Philadelphia. You're really testing my knowledge here. Last week we had Saskatchewan, Vancouver, and Calgary. This week we're starting with the 9th place team that finished in 9th place, another 8 and 10 team, The New York Riptide, who are now the Ottawa Black Bears, they have officially moved since the season concluded. 11.45 goals for, which is tied for 7th in the league, 13 goals against, dead last. They traded for Grennan, Nathan Grennan from Albany, so he's added to this forward group. They moved picks for him. Buffalo owns their first-round pick, which would have been number 7 from that Noseworthy deal years ago. They just signed 3 draft picks from last year. Jake Stevens was the 10th overall pick last year. Reed Kurtz was the 33rd overall pick last year, and Kobe Aslander was the 73rd overall pick last year. So they signed all 3 of those to 2-year deals. They also signed Jay Thurnberg back. He was going to be a UFA, so they got their face-off man and a defender and a veteran presence back there for 2 more years. They're locking up some young guys here, but what did you think of the moves so far and what the season was for them last year? I know you had them making it as your ace spot before the season started. They finished just short. I didn't fall for it again. I fell for it the year before, and they went 5-13. But what did you think overall of your sneaky dark horse playoff pick?
I think they're making the right moves. I think they are headed in the right direction. I think they need some things. Teat, Kiernan, and O'Connor, they all remained really good. Teat is still just absolutely incredible. I think he needs a better number 2 underneath him. Matisse was a huge addition to that team with 62 points. I think he was a really good addition that you and I both wanted for the Bandits and have for a long time. Callum Jones for defense, he had the best rookie season. He looks like he's going to be a superstar for them for a long time. Brent Noseworthy, I mean, you just mentioned him in the trade. He's also looking really good. 124 loose balls for them, and he went from 4 caused turnovers to 11, so he's looking good. They have Brownell, Ron John, fantastic name, Matt Marinier, and Damon Edwards all had really good defensive seasons again. Thornbert, I don't know how much longer he's going to play, but his faceoffs, again, somehow one of the best ever to do it, still at 53.8%, so he wasn't having a bad season. But to me, they just need a few more pieces for sure. They definitely need someone else on offense, in my opinion. I mean, the drop, I don't know, it's tough to say the drop from Teat to anybody. Yeah, obviously he's one of the best in the entire league, so the drop-off's going to be big. But Teat's at 130 points, and their next best is 79, which isn't a bad season by any means. 79 points is still a lot, but they don't have that in between, that true 1A, 1B. And I know we are spoiled for Buffalo. They had the most goals in the entire league this year, but we keep comparing everybody to Buffalo, not only because we cover Buffalo, but they are the champions, right? So that is the team that you want to aspire to be in some way, because they are the ones who have won it back-to-back and been to 4 straight. I mean, that is the team that you are trying to build your team like, and how can you get closer to what Buffalo has? So the Bandits, no one's going to get, Dane Smith and Josh Byrne. It's just not going to happen. You're not going to get those 2 together. It's impossible. The Bandits are ridiculously lucky, but they just need somebody else on offense to be a little bit closer. That true 1A, 1B with Teat. Again, Kiernan, O'Connor, Sundown had a really solid season. Like, he went from 36 points to 63. That jump is huge. Like, that's really great for the team in general, but they still don't have that extra go-to guy on offense, in my opinion. They have a pretty solid supporting cast that is continuing to get better. Again, that jump from 36 to 63 from Sundown that's crazy. I mean, 30 points in one season, that's a really, really good step. Keogh, I thought you would have expected more from a player like that. 38 points, again, not bad as a supporting role, but I would have liked to see him closer to 50, 60 points. I thought he was brought in to be a little bit better than he was. Not that he, again, was terrible by any means, but I just think they need one more piece on offense and probably one more solid piece on defense. And then goalie, I don't think they have it solved yet. Dunkerley's very young, so he had just a rough season. I'm not going to sugarcoat that. He is young, though, but he could still develop. He could just be taking a little bit of time. I think he's shown signs of being a good goalie for sure. I don't think he's awful by any means, but I don't know if he is the answer for this team in the future. But again, he's still young, still developing, so I'm sure he is currently their answer and will be. But I think he also just needs to take that step forward for this team to really start pushing for playoffs.
So before I dive into my thoughts, I kind of want to get this first sponsor read out of the way of Tap That Tap Room, but I am very interested to dive into this one. But like I said, first, Tap That Tap Room.
I'm still scrolling. I lost it. I got it. Tap That Tap Room's at 363 Delaware Street in Tonawanda, New York. They are Buffalo's first women-owned self-pour bar featuring 30 consistently rotating taps. They offer a variety of beers, ciders, sours, seltzers, and malt beverages.
So like we say every week, they have a loaded schedule of events nonstop. Every week they got the general trivia with Geeks Who Drink at 7:30 on Wednesdays. Every Thursday is the weekly karaoke starting at 7. Saturday is usually the live music. This week at 7, this Saturday, Son of an Outlaw is playing live. And I think what we don't mention enough about this place is, while, yes, they have tons to drink, 30 selections of beer, nonstop, taps. I mean, every time we've gone, they've added a different tap while we're there because they run out because everybody's just drinking it nonstop. But I think the food there is also really, really delicious. And I think how they have it set up, where you just scan it from your phone, you order it on your phone, and they bring it right to that table that you're sitting at, is perfect. Now, you're not going there for a steak. You're not going there for like this world-class 5-star ordering of food. It's a self-serve bar. So the food that they have is what you're looking for when you go to a bar. You got the nachos,
Absolutely.
you got the pretzel bites, you got I off the top of my head, I'm even forgetting what else they have. I think they got hummus platter too. They have so many different varieties there, and it's such good food, and it doesn't take like 45 to an hour to get it as well. So I think that's important to also mention that besides the 30 taps on 30 beers on tap, they have delicious, delicious food. So if you're looking for what else they have on tap, you can check out tapthattaproom.com, or what events they have coming up, check out their Facebook page. But to dive back into the New York Riptide / Ottawa Blackbirds, because I'm kind of combining it because, you know, I'm talking about last season and the forward, I think we gave them a C-. And I know you were kind of scoffing at that before because, you know, they won 3 more games than the year before. It's all the moves that they made in the offseason, though. They brought in a Kyle Matisse, who I was really high on for Buffalo. They made the trade for Stephen Keogh. They brought in an Austin Madronic. They made this trade for Tager Clark. They brought in John LaFontaine. They brought in Mitch Wild. They had the rookie in Callum Jones. They brought in a lot of pieces to put this team over the top and get them into the playoffs in their final year in New York. And it came up short. And I think a lot of it has to do with the back end. I mean, you're 7th in the league in scoring, tied for 7th in the league in scoring, but you're dead last in goals against. And yes, Dunkerley struggled. And yes, he's young at 26 years old. But he didn't get much help in front of him whatsoever. If you were watching some of those games, he was getting hung out to dry a lot. I think the biggest thing that you can look forward to this team, I mean, you got a bunch of 3 UFAs. You got Damon Edwards, Stephen Keogh, and Riley O'Connor as your UFAs. You got a few RFAs coming up the board. You already mentioned Larson Sundown had a really good year. Connor Kiernan, 3 more years locked under. This is all about proving to Jeff Teat he is in the right place to win an NLL championship. And you have 3 years to do it, because he's got 1 more year on his deal. Right now, he signed a 2-year deal last offseason, but he's got 2 more years of RFA status until he's a UFA. And then he can go wherever he wants unless they franchise tag him, which I don't know why the heck they wouldn't franchise tag the man. But this is all about proving to a world-class talent like Jeff Teat, hey, we can win around you. We can build the pieces around you, because so far through 3 years, they have not been able to get him to the playoffs. He's had unbelievable seasons. He's had record-breaking seasons, and he's on pace to just shatter records that have been long-standing for a long time. But this whole building around the Jeff Teat, it has to get better, because the pieces they brought in last year, yes, it added 3 more wins to your total, but it didn't get you to the playoffs. That's the biggest thing that they have to work on. And yes, they're bringing in 2 transition players that were highly drafted last year, but you don't have a first-round pick this year. And what are you going to do in free agency? Are you going to go out and get another a forward out there? Or is Nathan Giernan and Tager Clark the 2 pieces? Are you hoping Austin Madronic takes another step? Are you hoping that Larson Sundown, this is just the start of his big-time, high-flying career? Is Kyle Matisse going to continue to do this at the age of 35 next year? This is a team that needs to build from the back end. out. They need to see if Dunkerley is their main time goalie or if they're going to go out and trade for him. Zach Higgins would be perfect for this team. Like, I know I keep bringing that guy up for, like, Buffalo.
You love Higgins.
And where else. But he's like that hot commodity. He's that one piece that a team needs in net that they're struggling with right now. And again, I'm a fan of Dunkerley, but I think he, at this point in his career, I think he is a backup compared to a starter. And if you get a guy like Zach Higgins that can get him through 2 more years and then go to Dunkerley when he's a little bit more veteran savvy, because we all know in all sports, goalies are the position that takes the longest to mature and reach your prime. I think that would be a good move for them, but it's they got to do something to prove to Jeff Teat, hey, this is a team that you can win with, because I don't know how many more years he's willing to put in, especially the move from New York to Ottawa now. I mean, are you going to keep missing the playoffs? And is the league happy with one of their star players always missing the playoffs?
Yeah, I mean, what was it, why am I blanking out? Whatever. Their big push this year with the fancy game in Montreal, wasn't that Teat?
Oh, the unboxed. Yep. Jeff Teat versus,
I kept thinking undressed, and I was like, that's not what it was. It's not
Toronto,
undressed.
Yeah. Up in Montreal.
But yeah, I mean, that's the idea, right? Like, he's one of your superstars, and you have him out there, and I'm pretty sure that was a rough game. I don't think it was very good for New York. But that's just it. Like, do you want one of your superstars and one of the faces of this league to be stuck on a team that can't make playoffs? Similar to, I mean, they made it this year, so good for them. But I was going to say, similar to the NHL and McDavid, right? Edmonton was just continuing to struggle for years after years after years, and now they finally, I mean, they had an incredible run to the Stanley Cup, so way more than Buffalo can say. So they finally did what they needed to do. But I mean, same early idea, right? McDavid was just struggling forever, and he's, again, the face of the NHL, and same here. I know Dayton Smith's amazing, but Teat is also one of the big faces of the NLL. Do you want him stuck on a team that can't make playoffs? So we'll see. They definitely have some work to do to take that next step, though.
Yeah, so the player that we're looking for to tie in the Buffalo Bandits, which we do on each report card here, this one was a bit tougher. I mean, you got a guy like Brent Noseworthy, who Buffalo did trade. They got the 7th overall pick this year for him. He's sitting out there. He's an RFA. Does Buffalo take an interest in him? You can look at Kevin Brownell, who had a very solid season going into this year 36. He just re-upped in middle of the season, so he's there for 3 more years. But the guy that I would be targeting, and this kind of falls in line with what we've been saying on the last 6 report cards so far, is if this player does not return, this player could be inserted here. And I think a lot of it's pretty much not a Paul Dawson 2.0, but Damon Edwards. He was the captain of New York last year. He's more of a stay-at-home defender at this point in his career. He's UFA, so you don't have to trade for him. You don't have to give assets to get him. He's going to be 36 years old, 4 goals, 3 assists, 7 points, 27 loose balls, 14 caused turnovers, and 14 block shots. Now, while those stats do not flash, I think a lot of, if you're watching the game, yes, he's lost a step, but I think a lot of it is him trying to make up for what the team around him is doing, where he's trying to cover for the mistakes of the other players that are out there. I was a big John LaFontaine person. I wanted Buffalo to go out and try to acquire him as well, but he's still got 2 more years. But I think if you're going to lose a guy like a Paul Dawson, I think a Damon Edwards would be a nice stand-in piece for him. I don't think you have to play him every night, but he's a guy that will give up the body. He's a former captain. He's got the leadership on the back end that could replace the leadership that you would lose in a Paul Dawson.
LaFontaine, I'm not sure why. He had 3 jersey numbers last year. That's a lot. Fun fact that I'm staring
seeing why, but I don't remember why.
Yeah, 33, 17, and 66. So 33 to 66, I like it. You doubled up. 17, really kind of throwing it in there, but I don't know. Yeah, no, Edwards is, I mean, like you said, right around what we're looking for. I still think, and again, it's so hypothetical with the Bandits because we have no idea who's coming back, and even with the players that do come back, I still think if they found the right person, and again, I will say this every time because I don't love talking about it, but LaRue and Justin Robinson, anyone like that, anyone on the practice squad for this team, the Bandits are in beyond win now mode, right? They just won back-to-back championships. Anything they can do to make this team better, even if it means cutting a fan favorite or a player like LaRue that they've invested a lot of time and effort into, changing positions. if they can find someone out there that is a step up from that player, I do think they will, just cut ties with that other player and move on. So it's not necessarily that there's an active, obvious roster spot for a player like this unless someone moves on, but they might also just simply not want somebody else back that there was a healthy scratch throughout the entire championship, right? So if they don't believe you can make the team and play for the championship and the playoffs, then you're probably the lower people on the totem pole. So both of those guys being defenders is another reason why we're kind of aiming toward the defensive side of the ball as well.
Yeah, I mean, we said it in the last two shows, and I'll say it again here. I wouldn't be shocked if they just run it back and they don't really bring in any other pieces.
I mean, yeah, it depends on...
It depends on what
retirement.
Yes, yeah, it depends on retirements and what players want to come back. And it's not them not wanting to come back. It's more, hey, is there another opportunity elsewhere for me to pick up more time, on the field or be more of a centerpiece? I don't know why you would want to do that when you can win championships here. But this is more, hey, they're trying to, and you said it perfectly, they're trying to improve their practice squad, or they're trying to improve like the 19th, 18th, 17th spot on their roster, because the first 15 are locked in. If everybody comes back, there's not very many room on this team, and they've got 3 first-round picks and early second. So we've said it on every show, but I think it's important to reference this if people are just catching on to these report cards for the first time. But we'll move forward. First playoff team that we're handing out a report card for. It is a team that I did not predict to make the playoffs in my preseason, and I did not predict them to make it in my middle of the season. It's the Rochester Nighthawks, and their problem was not the front end. They're the final team, Phil, that finished 8-10, but 11.89 goals for, which was 5th in the league, 12.56 goals against, tied for 12th in the league. They already re-signed Turner Evans, but they also don't have their first-round pick. That also belongs to Buffalo. That would have been the 8th overall pick. They got 3 guys that are currently unsigned from their draft class last year, the 15th overall pick, a lefty forward in Hogg, and then the 35th overall pick, a defender in Pacino. So I'm assuming that those 2 players are going to get signed. If, the NLL, they might have been signed already, and they just haven't documented yet. But this is a team that they had a very roller coaster season. I believe they won their first 3, then they lost their next 6, then they won their next 3, then they lost their next 4, and then they won their final 2 games to sneak into the playoffs. The odds of them, I think, if I remember correctly, and correct me if I'm wrong, they had 3 or 6 outcomes in the final week that they needed to happen out of like 186 possible outcomes, and one of the 6 happened. 1 out of 186 outcomes happened that got them into the playoffs. But Connor Fields, Ryan Smith, Ryan Lanchbury, they're star-studded up top. It's more about what happened in net, and I'm a little nervous if they're going to rely on a Rylan Hartley because of his concussion issues, because one bad deflection or one bad shot to the head, I'm shocked he came back this year, but one bad shot to the head, that could be a career ender for a guy who's had a long history of head injuries.
Yeah, I think, like you mentioned, I mean, the offense is set, right? They have a very potent offense, one of the better ones in the entire league, even if we don't love to admit it. I mean, Katoni gone, Hogarth gone, and, you're thinking those are pretty big holes on that team, but Lanchbury came in, Waters came in, McCumvey was the rookie, and all 3 of them stepped right in and took over for those players. Smith had a pretty sizable jump forward for him in points from last year to this year. He did a really nice job taking that next step. Love him a lot, sadly, because he's not on this team. But Curtis Knight, I believe, yes. He was injured a lot of this season, only played 9 games, so we'll see if he can come back if they re-sign him, and if they do end up getting him back and he comes back to form at all. I mean, their offense overall is fine. Their defense, on the other hand, I mean, Gilray is fantastic. Reese is fantastic. Like you said, Turner Evans, a pretty solid player. But at the same time, I just think that they're missing another just lockdown defender. I mean, Reese is good, but then after that, Jensen, the rookie, had a really good season for a rookie especially, but in general, he did have a really good season. But I just think they're still missing another back-end piece to just be that solid, lockdown, better defenseman. I mean, Gilray's more of a transition player. He had 24 caused turnovers, 174 loose balls, we love him a lot, but he's a great defender, but he's more transition than defense, even though he's a really good defender on top of that. But when he's your best defender and he's a more hybrid transition player doing a lot more than just defense, Reese is still really good, but I just don't think they have enough defensive pieces to take that next step right now. And then, like you mentioned, goaltending is a huge question mark for them. Will Hartley come back? I mean, mainly due to health. I mean, yes, he's signed, but I mean, that it's up to the player and the human being who's going through concussion issues, playing a game where he's taking potential 100-mile-an-hour shots off the face. We'll see. I mean, it was a really scary situation with him last year. Like you even mentioned, shocked he came back last year and even looked pretty good. Not saying that he lost his talent by any means, but you can still be shell-shocked from an injury like that for sure. So to come back and play the way he did, it seems like he is a competitor and he's not ready to give it up. But his health issues and health concerns are a big question for this team. And when he went down, this team struggled quite a bit. Hutchcraft is just not quite there and not quite what they need. And Hartley, I think, is. But again, his health is a big concern. So the back end and goaltending for this team definitely needs to step up if they want to take that next step. I mean, they have the offense, which is one of the big keys of the NLL. I mean, even like we were just saying with Jeff Teat and everything, right? So Teat put up 130, but the next person behind him was only 80. They have Connor Fields at 120, Ryan Smith at 99, Lanchberry at 86. So that's more of what you're looking for from a really good offense, from a playoff team, a championship team. It's that really star-studded guy who's, putting up over 100 consistently, but also that secondary piece isn't 80 points or below. It's somebody who's closer to another 100 or 86. I mean, they have 3 guys that are above 85 points this year. So it's having that depth on offense, not just that teat and then a huge drop-off to the next player. So they have the offense. They need the defense. Goalie is a question mark.
Yeah, we gave him a C+. Looking at all these stats again and all the numbers, I think I might have graded him a little bit too low. They might have been more in that B- range, B+ or B range. You're looking at the offense, though. We already mentioned it. Connor Fields is 29. He's got a year left. Ryan Smith's 27. He's got a year left. Ryan Lanchberry's 26. He needs to re-up, but he's not going anywhere because his rights are with the team. McConvey, 24, 1 year left. He was the rookie season. Kyle Waters, 25, 1 year left. Curtis Knight, 32. He's a UFA. Turner Evans, 31, 1 year left. Dan Lomas, 31, 1 year left. And then Austin Hazen, 24, 1 year left. They're locked in, and they're very, very young. Their oldest player is 32 and he's a UFA if he comes back, and that was Knight, and he had 28 points in the 9 games he played. Their offense is set. Their offense is going to keep growing together, blending together. McConvey's just going to keep getting better, 52 points in his rookie year. What you said about the goaltending is the biggest issue. I think if they would have had Hartley throughout the entire year, they would have been more consistent. They wouldn't have been this up and down team. Hutchcraft did the best he could, and I think a lot of times he did not get the help he needed to in front of him. I think they're one piece away on defense from being completely locked in on defense. Even their defense is young. Gilroy's 28, Reese is 27, Whitley's 25, Ogilvy's 25, Jensen's 26. I mean, your oldest player is Coates at 37 and he's UFA. I think they need one more piece on the defensive end, but it all comes down to what's in net. And I believe Hartley's going to come back. I don't have any question about that, especially him coming back later on in the season and leading them in the playoff run. And I think Toronto only scored 9 goals, and I think Rochester only put in 3, if I remember correctly, in the playoffs. But actually, I could pull it up right now. It was 9-6 in the playoffs. So the offense scored 6 goals. Hartley gave up 9, but. That really comes down to, can they rely on Hartley? And if you can, because he's been a wild card 2 years ago, that whole going into the opponent's bench trying to fight guys. So he's a bit of a hothead, but the numbers are there. 9.71 goals against an 80 save percentage. Played in 7 games, 2-1. It's what's behind him. Can they rely on a Hutchcraft? I think you need to get a better backup behind him because of the concussion issues, because of the head injury issues, because you're one shot away from Hartley going down, possibly for a career ender. And again, a lot of people were shocked he came back this season. A lot of people thought, hey, don't rush it back. This is your health, but everybody cleared it. But I think what's most important is getting a backup behind him that can stand in his place. Maybe a guy like Aaron Bold, who's not expected and not going to command time because he's a UFA from Vancouver. I think he would be a perfect piece behind a Rylan Hartley that can mature him a bit, get him in the right headspace, and can step in and has that starter's pedigree that can fill in if Hartley does go down. I think that would be a good piece that they add if he's willing to come cross country, switch countries, come cross continent, I should say, and be the backup behind Hartley.
Yeah, I mean, a few people have mentioned it. I don't know if it's exactly what they'd be looking for, but Shanahan, with him being out there and Rochester being right there, as just a backup who is, I mean, sadly for Shanahan, a career backup so far, but he's got that in him. He's got the calmness, and he's learned from a championship team and a championship goalie. So, I mean, he also wouldn't be too bad of a backup option for them. And then I think with what you said about the defense, I think the piece they need is a veteran. I mean, like you said, they are so young, but they don't have that. I mean, Dawson, again, we keep mentioning him, but look what he did to the defense, right? I mean, the Bandits have one of the best defenses in the entire league, and look what a veteran was able to do to take that defense to the next level and all the way to a championship. So even though the Bandits even have a Priolo and a Weiss and these guys who have been there forever, and I mean, Priolo's the captain of the team, captain of the defense, and is doing an incredible job, but another veteran came in and settled the entire defense down, completely changed the way they look. And even Priolo admitted how much Dawson meant to the team. And he was, obviously willing to kind of say like, hey, this guy was huge for our defense and for me and for the veteran leadership when he is a captain and a veteran on the team. So I think this team just could use that veteran presence, but like a truly solid one, like a Dawson. I mean, don't take him from Buffalo, but that kind of player. And I mean, we've even mentioned a few of them, even like you just said from Damon Edwards, 36 years old, captain of New York. If he wants to mix it up, doesn't want to go to Ottawa, wants to stay in New York, would rather go to a team like Rochester to stay local. Huge option right there for a player like that. Captain of another team, defense, has everything you're looking for, and might want to stay in New York.
Before we dive into what the Buffalo Bandits might be interested in acquiring from their 90 interstate rivals here, let's dive into our second sponsor of the show, Mr. Sizzles.
Mr. Sizzles is at 346 Connecticut Street in Buffalo, New York. They are opening 2 more locations, one in Clarence, one in Hamburg, one of them opening up hopefully pretty soon. We got to be getting pretty close. Hopefully it is getting there. We've seen the pictures. We've seen a lot of stuff about it, and it's looking fantastic, as does their food. They are currently open 7 days a week, 11 to 11, with a brunch menu on Saturday and Sunday from 11 to 3.
Now, Phil, I'm going to beat the desk. Not really, because we're recording here, and I don't want the camera to shake.
Okay. Yeah, don't do that.
We've been telling everybody for the past few months now, ever since Mr. Sizzles came on the show, how delicious their food is. Not was. It is delicious. They were just voted from Buffalo Spree's Instagram page and the articles they write. They were just voted Buffalo's best burger for 2024. We've been trying to tell everybody to get there. People have slowly been listening, and that's why they're able to open 2 more locations. It's because of us. No, joking. But the words they put, to put it simply, Mr. Sizzle's burger, comprising of a soft bun, melty cheese, and perfectly grilled beef patties, slap. House-made chicken nuggets. The old school milkshakes are pretty memorable too. They couldn't have put it in better terms than we always do. Their food is just delicious no matter what you order, and they're slowly becoming not that hidden gem anymore. And for a place that's only been doing it since 2021, it's unbelievable that more and more people have not heard about Mr. Sizzles. But hopefully with them opening the 2 new locations, it's going to spread even more, and they're going to be able to open 10 more locations pretty soon. But also, since you're around Buffalo, and anybody that's not around Buffalo might not have heard this, but the Old Pink burned down last week. Starting now through sometime in July, 100% of their proceeds for the ham solo burger that they have, or it's not a burger, sandwich that they have, will be donated to the Old Pink staff, their GoFundMe page, because a lot of their staff is out of a job now because their business burnt down. But that's what Mr. Sizzles is all about. It's about community first. They've been Buffalo since always is their motto. I think what they do, besides just food, but they're amazing people as well, and I'm very happy that they're sponsors on the show just because of what they do for the community as well. So go check out their menu. on their socials or at mrsizzles.com, and make sure you stop down to the Buffalo location while it's the only one currently open before they open those 2 more locations. But we'll move back to Rochester and the pieces that Buffalo might be interested in. Instead of signing the free agents that you got, Dan Coates and Curtis Knight were the 2 UFAs, I'm looking more trade route, because we've known for a while Buffalo has the pieces that they can move around. They've got a lot of pieces, and unless they're pushing those to the following year and trading for picks down the line, whatever it is, they're going to be trying to make moves to improve this team. I think Mitch Ogilvy, who's 25, 1 year left on his deal, 6 goals, 3 assists, 9 points, 67 loose balls, 14 caused turnovers, 15 block shots, would be a great piece to add to this team. Or you want to bring in a relative of one Josh Byrne, the Taylor Jensen, the rookie. Bring him in. He currently needs a new deal, but his rights are with Rochester right now. But in 13 games, a goal, 4 assists, 5 points, 65 loose balls, 15 caused turnovers, 10 block shots. Why not bring the brother to play with the other brother? We got all the Robinsons. Let's collect the Josh Burns family relatives here, because anybody that's related to Josh Byrne has got to be stinking good at lacrosse, and we saw in his rookie year he really is. I
think that you start with a goal every game if you have every family member in the league on your team. So
that's fair. Yes,
I think as long as they're in the active lineup, you just start +1 in that game, because you have a
Go
family
get the Couriers
bonus
too. They're both UFAs. Just load up
right
on all those brothers.
No, I like it. I like both of them. I do think this offseason is going to be very, very wild for the Bandits. I know it's weird to say that, considering how often we say that this team is set and there's no room, but there's also no room for 3 first-round draft picks and a second round pick, the second overall second round pick. A very high pick in the second round. There we go. But they have a lot of draft picks that they have absolutely nowhere to go with. Yes, some of those guys, like we've seen recently, can be drafted and brought back to college, so they can draft someone and kick it down the line. They can trade some of those picks for future picks, like we've seen them also do, but why not try to package some or all of them to get now talent for a team that is ready now? But also, you always have to look to the future, right? So getting a couple of younger defensive pieces like they've been doing recently with their younger defensive core that they are slowly starting to kind of rebuild as some of these guys get a little bit older. I love that they are mixing the young with the old and championships, and they're doing it pretty flawlessly right now. The Bandits are. They're doing just a really good job of bringing in new first-round defenders and talent while the old talent is still here and still playing really, really well at a high level. So they're blending everything really well, but those first-round picks, they got to go somewhere, right? I mean, it's going to be a very interesting offseason in that regard. Yes, their roster is set. If everybody comes back, I don't think the Bandits do anything. I do agree with you. If everybody's willing to come back, I say they run it back, because why wouldn't you? You've been to 4 straight and won 2. The proof is right there, right? You have the championship team. You don't need to make any changes. Why would you? But those picks have to go somewhere. So that aspect of it will make it a really interesting offseason if they can package some of those picks and pick up a player or two to help them now and in the future. I would love to see it. And a team like Rochester, when we talk about the travel all of the time for these players and things, anybody in New York State or, Toronto or any of that area, luckily there's a lot of teams that play right near the Bandits, so that helps. But Rochester is absolutely one of them, and we've already given them 90% of our solid players, so they could do us a favor and maybe just give one back.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, enjoy Matt Gilray while you got him.
You jerks. And Fields.
That trade, Phil, I hate it. But we'll dive into our last team here. We'll try to crank this one out a little bit quicker, because I know we were talking about Shanahan probably a lot longer than both of us thought we were, and we're already 49 minutes into this one. Panther City finished 7th, 9-9. First time saying that in a long time, because it's been 8 and 10 the last 2 weeks, Phil. But 11.39 goals for, 9th in the league, and 11.22 goals against, which is 7th in the league. So pretty middle of the tier. They finished 7th. This is a very middle of the tier team. They own their own pick, Georgia owns their pick, which is 9th overall. They got a few guys out there. Justin Sykes forward from last year, 21st overall, lefty. He's the top peak of the draft class last year that they're looking to sign. But this is a team that definitely needs to take that next leap. They were an expansion team 2 years or 3 years ago at this point, made playoffs, made that nice run last year, and I believe they finished third. And then, 2 years ago, Phil. I'm still talking as the season is still going on, but last year finished seventh. They got the matchup with San Diego in the first round, and San Diego got the monkey off their back there. But I think this is a team that is still trying to figure out how to get from that good team to tier 2 or tier 1. I think they're still sitting in that third tier, and I think a lot of it has to do with, hey, what is Callum Crawford's future? He's a UFA. He's 40 years old. He's played in 16 games last year and still had 94 points, 42 goals, one of the best pure goal scorers and one of the best pure forwards that this league's ever seen, and the numbers back that up. But what does he do? I can't expect him to sign elsewhere because he lives in Oklahoma, and Panther City is very, very close to that. I can't see him, if he does return, going anywhere else. But if you lose him by retirement or for some reason he does sign elsewhere, what does this team look like? Because Will Malcolm, 105 points, but then the next one is Jonathan Donville, 79 points. Then you got the rookie in Knox with 50 points, Caputo with 40. If they lose those 94 points, they don't really have that piece there right now that can step up in his place and replace that person that replaced Callum Crawford.
Yeah, you absolutely took the biggest part of this team if we're trying to speed this up a little bit. I mean, Crawford's just the huge aspect of it. If they lose him, they're in trouble. I mean, there's no other real way to say it. If they lose 94 points, anytime you lose 94 points, you're in trouble. But they do not have the backup to catch up to it. I mean, even Donville, yes, he's still solid, but he went from 90 points to 79 points. It's not a huge drop-off by any means. I mean, 11 points isn't, you're not freaking out about it, but at the same time, a young player like that, you want him to continue progressing forward and get better, or at least maintain the same. The fact that he took an 11-point dip is not good when you're also trying to think of replacing a Callum Crawford. And even like you said, Malcolm is 105 points, which is fantastic, but he's also 25, right? Donville's 26, Knox is 24, Caputo's 30. But if you lose Crawford and his 94 points, you also lose your entire veteran offense. Yep. Who? I know Malcolm's fantastic. There's no denying that by any means, but the team gets extremely young on offense immediately. And again, 94 points, that I don't know how you just replace that. I mean, there might be a free agent out there, but if he decides not to come back because he's 40 years old and he just had an incredible season and they didn't really do all that much with it, I think they're in trouble. I really do. I mean, I think they have an okay defense that could use another player as well. Hossack is fantastic. Malcolm's fantastic. Sellers had a good year. I think Damoud still is the guy. I think he's a very, very good goalie. I still love him a lot. I know he wasn't the extreme player I wanted him to be, but he's still, 80% save percentage. We talk about it all the time. Anytime a goalie in the NLL is anywhere near that 80%, especially 80 or over, but even like that 79 and up, anytime your save percentage is up there, you are one of the elite goalies in the league. 11.04 goals against. Damoud is amazing. He's only 26 years old. He is, I think, I was trying to go back quickly. I know you like Hartley, but I think Damoud is possibly the most established goalie we've talked about, other than maybe Dylan Ward. But again, he had a real rough season. But I think he's been the most elite goalie we've seen on a team that we've talked about so far with all these report cards. So for once, we have
Christian Del Bianco would like to enter the room.
I forgot we talked about Calgary.
But yes, I agree. I think him and Ward are
one of the few
behind him. Yes. Yes.
So a lot of times we've talked about a lot of these teams that are at the bottom of the league that they have goalie trouble and they need to find one, and that's a humongous part of it. This team doesn't have that. So, you have a building block there. You have offensive pieces for sure. But if they lose Crawford, I don't see how this team makes playoffs unless, you just don't replace 94 points. It's just not out there as a free agent. I don't know who you would pick up to pick up that amount of production. And if they lose him, I do think this team takes a step back. I just don't see any other way they replace that instantly in one offseason.
Yeah, we gave him a B minus. I think that's a fair grade. Going into the season, I had him originally in my 5 spot, and then I knocked him down when I did more research and figured out, okay, it's Malcolm Crawford and Donville, and then who's the next piece? And it ended up being Knox, the rookie. I think Knox can take that next step next year, and I think the second half of the season, I think he stepped up perfectly. I think you want to see more from a Ryan Sheridan, who was that big bodied guy that was the draft pick last year along with Knox. I think if he can step up as well and be that next piece, that secondary piece as well, I think your offense is slowly building in the right direction. But like you said, you can't replace Callum Crawford, that veteran leadership, that savvy-ass player that just knows everybody's tendencies in net because he's been around so long. But I think you hit the nail on the head. Nick DeMood is the main reason that this team made the playoffs, because he was so electric. He was the one that stole the game when Buffalo faced him. He was unbelievable, and he was unbelievable in the playoff game as well. He gave up 9 goals, and it was the overtime one that I believe it was just went real quick, where or Rigolari passed it out to, I can't remember who it was. I think it was Trey Leclerc real quick, and it was in a breakaway and ended their season. They had him in overtime. But I believe Nick DeMood is the piece that moves that whole engine there. And I mean, I'll hand it to you. He played better than I thought he would. You were on it first, and I think he's just going to take that next step, being 26 next year. 9-7, 11.04 goals against. I think he's good. But to tie in Buffalo here, because we're trying to speed this up, there's not a ton of pieces from here because they are more Southern tier team, and it would be tough to, without knowing where all these players live, to try to convince one of these players to come from Texas to come up to Buffalo. But Josh Medeiros, I think he would be a very good piece here. He's an RFA, so the rights are still there. You can kind of offer shoot him, but this is like hockey that rarely ever happens. But 4-4-8. 78 loose balls, 13 cost turnovers, 14 block shots. I think across the board, I think that's been the standard average that I've been saying on this show here. But I think 27 years old, he would be another younger piece on the back end to take more of the abuse from the Steve Priolos, the Paul Dawsons, the Nick Weiss, all the players that are up and over 30 years old. Bringing in a guy like 27, who's 27, that can kind of be that next wave with the Cam Wires, the Dylan Robinsons, the Zach Belters. I think that would be a nice piece on the back end there.
I do think an interesting point you just made is we don't know where these players live, right? I mean, we always talk about East Coast, West Coast, and it's really hard to make these trades, but even a guy like Dawson, right? He said that he flew 4 hours away for home games every single weekend, and the trade to Buffalo got him so much closer to home. So it is a good point that we really don't know where any of these players live. Obviously, I mean, we assume if they're playing out West Coast that they are just out west or down south, that's about where they live, but we don't know that for sure. So it could be a player on a team that actually does live in Ontario or Toronto, where a lot of these players are from, that, Buffalo might actually be closer to their home. Right. So we don't know, but I do like the pick. I do like the idea of getting some of these Bandits first round picks and trying to trade them away for a 25, 26, 27-year-old defenseman that can continue to grow with the team, but also, like you mentioned, give the veteran players more shifts off. Yes. Priolo is incredible, and he's still playing at a high level, and if he's going to continue to play and come back, then obviously the Bandits are going to have him because he's still really, really good. But the more time you can give him an extra shift off, so when he does have a really important shift he needs to be fresh for, he can go out there and give it 110% and then take that extra break and just have other guys that are a little bit younger that you can rely on to give a Priolo a break. I think that would be huge.
Yeah, so on our next show, we've got Halifax, Georgia, and San Diego on the line. Then we got Toronto and Albany before rounding it out with grading Buffalo with a whole Buffalo Bandits-centered show, because we've been running through the NLL. Might as well give Buffalo a whole show itself. But we'll dive into our final segment here, 59 minutes in. I figured this was not going to be a very long segment here because it's the Sabres. Draft is Friday and Saturday. Sabres hold the 11th overall pick in the first round, and that's the only draft pick that we really care about, because if you've ever listened to the show, 2nd through the 7th round, who cares? With Florida winning, Kyle Poster's 7th round draft pick that came from Florida is now a 5th round pick, Phil. We're making the playoffs, baby. But, Phil, really, what are you expecting Buffalo to do, and what are you hoping for them to do come Friday night with the 11th overall pick? If they still have it going into Friday, which I fully expect them to still have, what are you hoping for, and what are you expecting from the good old Buffalo Sabres?
Well, I do have my do something shirt on because I would like them.
See it.
I would like them to do something and trade the pick away. Really, really, really want them to trade that pick away. We've talked about this for years now, and I understand that they've gotten lucky with some of these draft picks as far as really, really high, first overall guys that you can't miss. But for the most part, I hate the NHL draft. The players you don't see for 3, 4, 5 years, and it's a real shot in the dark if they're ever going to make it and be impactful. So choosing, trading it away and getting a player that is established, it can help you right now on a team that is just floundering and grasping for any little bit of chance to make playoffs is what I want. I honestly could care less. I did write down some of the prospects that people are kind of expecting to be there, that the Buffalo Sabres might choose, who I expect them to take a pick, and I will be sad and disappointed. And I really don't care. I did look into them, and I just don't care. I mean, yes, they're good. Yes, they're exciting, I guess. But I don't care about prospects anymore. I mean, I meant to look it up where Buffalo is in the prospect pool as far as the entire NHL. I believe they have. Are they still number one?
Yes, still number one.
Because if they weren't, they are one of the best. So you got to stop. You got to stop drafting. You already have the best prospect pool in all of the NHL. You have the youngest team in the NHL. That does not help you make playoffs or go anywhere. Trade this pick away with some prospects. I don't care. Give your first and, a couple prospects to somebody and get a top 6 winger who will actually help the team now and possibly, make playoffs again. But I fully expect them to hold on to the pick, draft someone I don't care about that we won't see for 3, 4, 5 years, and I will just continue to be sad about the offseason.
That might be the biggest rant we've gotten out of Phil in months, and I love it. I'm right there with you. I'm hoping that they move it with like Noah Ostlund and Peyton Krebs and go get a top 6 freaking winger like that you could pair with Tage Thompson and Alex Tuck. That would be the absolute dream, is to find a winger for that top line. And then you can put J.J. Paterka, Dylan Cousins, and Jack Quinn on the second line there and just build your bottom 6 from there on out. I expect them to make the pick. I expect them to pick the best forward or the best player available and just go, hey, we tried to trade around. Nobody met our value, and we wanted to hold on to the prospect pool that we had, and it's never bad to add to it. Fully expect that to be the press conference and bash my head through the wall continuously. Watching Game 7 on Monday night, Phil, this is a small tangent on the side of it, but it's really not. The Sabres are playing a different sport than the rest of the teams. If you think the Buffalo Sabres are 1 or 2 pieces away from making the playoffs and competing whatsoever, you're nuts. They need to take this 11th pick and start the pieces to – you want a guy like a Matthew Tkachuk. Remember my rant 2 or 3 years ago before they traded him to Florida? The things I would do for Matthew Tkachuk? He just hoisted the cup, and now he's pouring beer out of the Stanley Cup into people's faces and pretty much waterboarding them from the second floor of Florida's bar. I want Kevin Adams to point at your shirt. I want him to do something, Kevin. There's trades all over the place. I know he's making calls. Don't think I don't think he's making calls. Do something, anything. Prove you have a pulse. I know I was listening to the morning show on Tuesday before we recorded this. They're starting the Gergensen watch because they believe that Gergensen's going to re-sign. Guess what? I fully believe it too. Why would Gergensen want to come back? Dude, just go anywhere and you're going to win the Stanley Cup. That's what's going to happen. When Jeff Skinner gets bought out on Friday, he's going to go sign with Winnipeg, and they're going to win the Stanley Cup. Guess who's winning the Stanley Cup next year? Colorado, because Casey Middlestad just re-upped with them. They're winning the Stanley Cup there. Buffalo needs to take this piece and take a bunch of their prospects that they built up this prospect pool and go get now talent. Go get players that are hard to play against. I want to watch this team and have joy in my heart once again, and I haven't had it for years. And 2 years ago, we had that wonderful run, but I think they would have gotten the doors blown off of them if they would have made playoffs. They need to go find another piece to this top 6 and add to it and make the bottom 6 so much tougher to play against. We know what Peyton Krebs is. He's not going to develop into anything. I was wrong about it. Fully admit it. Go send him somewhere where people still believe in him. Take the 11th pick, Peyton Krebs and Noah Ostlund, and go get a Nikolai Ehlers who can play the winger on the top line. Just go get somebody that will excite the fan base more than Lindy Ruff's signing did. Like, I know I just ranted here, but I expect nothing to happen. I expect them to make the 11th pick and them to say, he's adding to there's never enough prospects. We're going to do great eventually when they develop.
What I actually expect to happen, because this has also been the big rumors that New Jersey is also trying to trade their pick at 10, that they will get some mind-blowing trade that is exactly what Buffalo wants and is perfect and everything that we could have asked for, but because they're sitting at 10, Buffalo couldn't pull the trigger. Be like, well, they had one spot before us, so we couldn't.
If you feel an
we couldn't
earthquake
get the
Friday
same
night,
deal.
When that happens, it's me, like finding a tank and driving it down to KeyBank Center.
I fully expect the Devils to make some kind of wild 10th overall plus a prospect for some top 6 winger.
They're already making the moves.
Would have worked for Buffalo perfectly. Yeah, I mean, we talked about them for 3 seconds, and we're both upset. So that's fun. I fully expect them to take a pick, and it's going to be – I just don't care. I don't care who it is. I don't even want to talk about whoever it is when they do draft them. I know we will. I will have no excitement for whoever it is. It's not against the player by any means. It's not his fault that the Sabres are terrible and draft just continuing. We're all sad and dead inside.
Yes, yeah. There's 6 players left in the NHL right now who played against the Buffalo Sabres last time they made the playoffs. 6. It's 13 years ago. Okay,
but don't have any urgency to make playoffs. It's not a big deal.
No. I fully expect nothing. I expect Jeff Skinner to get bought out. I expect them to re-sign all their RFAs, and Jacob Bryson will be the 7th defender next year. I'm fully expecting all this to happen. And,
maybe Gergensons will go to the top line.
Yeah, Gergensons will be that guy that you can insert in the top line when somebody gets hurt. Yeah, that's what's going to happen. But if you're excited to listen to whatever we have to say on the next show about the Buffalo Sabres, stay tuned. But yeah, on our... we got some cleanup business here. On our next show, we got 3 more report cards. We got Halifax, Georgia, and San Diego. We got to talk about the Sabres, whatever they do this coming week. Hopefully it's a lot. Hopefully we have to dedicate a whole segment to all the moves they made, whether good, bad, or ugly. Phil's pointing out, do something. I will be on Talking Buffalo today on Wednesday. That will be airing on Thursday. We're recording on Wednesday. It'll be out on Thursday, so stay tuned for that. Last time I was on, we talked like 20 minutes about the Buffalo Bandits. No idea what we're doing, but excited to talk to Pat Moran once again. And I think that's pretty much all the cleanup business I have, Phil. Anything else you would like to add before we shut it down for another glorious week off of just relaxing and then listen for the tank rolling down Main Street headed to KeyBank Center when Buffalo just doesn't do anything?
Well, don't hit KeyBank Center. The Bandits play there. We have a banner to raise. So
that's true. Maybe just the mural outside that still has Tyler Myers as the last one.
Yeah, no, that's closer. That's close.
Okay. I'll do that.
Yeah, no, I'm just upset at the end of this episode, and it's going to be a depressing weekend of an NHL draft that I don't care about again.
Very true. Very true. We're 1 week away from 4th of July and a wedding, so we got that coming up. So. I don't know positive. But on our next show, we'll hand out 3 more report cards and whatever the Buffalo Sabres do. So thank you all for listening to another episode of the Buffalo Sports Collective. Thank you to Tap That Tap Room and Mr. Sizzles for sponsoring this show and this episode. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, and TikTok at Buffalo Sports Collective, and on X and Blue Sky at Buffalo Sports Co. Visit our website at buffalosportscollective.com. Check out our store on our link tree on our socials or at the shop tab at the top of the website. Follow our channel wherever you listen to podcasts. And ladies and gentlemen, make sure you leave us a review on Apple and Spotify. Until next time, bye-bye.